So here we go. This is going to be an 70.3 Oceanside recap. This is going to be my first attempt at trying to get some consistency, but also just starting YouTube videos. So I figured that coming back from 70.3 Oceanside was a perfect time to do it. So overall, it's my first pro race, first pro start. Also the first race in the new Ironman Pro Series, so a whole lot of firsts over the course of the weekend. And because of that, I definitely had nerves going in. That was one of the biggest things that I know I would have to, kind of deal with and make sure that I did everything to, not let the nerves impact my racing too much. Outside of that, it was also my younger brother Will's first time racing a 70.3. I've been coaching him for the past 5 months or so, and he had a terrific day, and it was pretty special to get to, see him all the way through the run once I had finished, and then, of course, on the finish line. And now he's already looking at what he wants his next race to be. So, he's hooked. And yeah, let's get to it. So, leading up to the race, I got there on Wednesday, so 3 days before. Flew into San Diego, met up with my mom, who flew in from Virginia, which was much appreciated, and we drove down to Oceanside together, checked into the Airbnb, and my brother showed up the day after. And I didn't try to go swimming on Wednesday. I thought about heading out to the water, but we got in a little bit later than expected, so figured I'd just save it for Thursday. But Thursday morning, I did go down to the beach, and there were red flags out, but I was nervous about the swim because they hadn't moved it into the harbor yet at that point. So I did go out and try to swim for about 15 minutes in the ocean, and I was just getting thrown around. And I was nervous about the swim going in because that was going to be my first saltwater swim experience. And my open water swim experience, period, is very limited. So I knew that the swim was going to be a struggle. And I won't lie, getting thrown around for 15 minutes by the swells on Thursday, just, day and a half before race day, was a little bit intimidating. Definitely added some stress, but thankfully on Friday we did get the word that the swim is moving to the harbor, so I was very thankful for that. But also on Friday I was lucky enough to get a slot with the Pro Series photographers, so got to go take some pictures with them, which was really fun. Cool to see a lot of other familiar faces in there. For the mental side of things, it was actually a little bit hard. Like, I definitely had some imposter syndrome feeling. Like, I've only been doing this for a year. I've only raced 4 times before this. Holy cow, I'm lining up against these people who've been doing it for 10 or 15 years and who are the best in the world. So, that was an interesting mix of very exciting, fun stuff, but also having to deal with like some harder mental, just the mental game. And that just continued further on into Friday because we had the pro meeting, the pro briefing, and I ended up sitting directly next to Lionel Sanders, who, like I said, I've been watching his YouTube for years now, and obviously is one of the best in the world. He went on to win Oceanside on Saturday. So, ending up in a seat next to him less than 24 hours before the gun went off. Awesome. Super cool experience, Lionel. Thank you for chatting with me the entire time that we were in the meeting. That definitely helped calm my nerves. But at the same time, I was like, oh my God, like, I'm going to have to line up with these guys. And, that was definitely like, just something that was in the back of my head. And I managed it as best I could, but I would be lying if I said that I wasn't extraordinarily intimidated leaving that meeting. Aside from that, most of my Friday was spent eating carbs. My fuel-in plan and my coach, Scott, had me eating way more carbs than I ever had the day before a race, but thankfully was able to get that done. And, heading into Saturday, aside from the nerves and the mental side of it, physically I felt terrific. I've had an incredible off season. My coach Summer and I have been working really well and really hard together, certainly in the best shape that I've ever been in. And, you know, the combination of that as well as dialing in my nutrition with fueling and precision, I was, you know, chomping at the bit, ready to go, and, you know, really just wanted to kind of throw down and see what I could do against such a crazy stacked field. So moving on to race day, also very cool to get a pro parking pass for the first time and to not have to wait around in traffic. That was amazing. But in transition, you know, walking by Sam Long and Lionel and Mark Dubrick and Jackson Laundry, like all these guys, again, the intimidation factor is just through the roof. And, you know, setting up the bike and transition, everything went very smoothly. No complaints there. And, you know, this is also the first time that I've gotten to warm up in the water, because most of the time age group fields do not get to get in the water before starting. And I actually think that's going to be a pretty big difference maker for me. I felt way more comfortable starting the swim than I have in the past. And I'm pretty sure it's because I got to swim for about 15 minutes and, you know, got in about a K before the actual gun went off. But, you know, starting that race with 75 other guys treading water on a buoy in a 58-degree harbor was something else. And, you know, so the gun went off, and I knew that obviously I wasn't going to swim front pack or anything, but I did, you know, for about the first 300 yards, find a group that I felt I could swim with and felt would likely be a sustainable pace. And, you know, coming down from altitude, my breathing was great. The water did not actually feel too cold, despite it being the coldest water that I've ever been in. So, you know, for the first 3 or 4 minutes, everything was feeling great, and I was very excited. And then, unfortunately, my goggles got kicked off, and from there, it just kind of went downhill for the swim. I was able to get them back on pretty quickly, but at that point, the sun was also directly in our face. And I ended up sighting the wrong buoy for 200 or 300 yards, which is just a rookie mistake, and that is on me. But, you know, at that point, I had completely lost the pack that I was hoping to swim with, as well as pretty much everybody else. So swam the rest of the course solo, still not able to see a ton. So guessing where I was going most of the time, which, you know, ended up resulting in a swim split that I was not thrilled with. And I know that it wasn't super indicative of my swim fitness and the hours that I've been putting in the pool. So came out of the water alone, and also just frustrated, and got on the bike mad and knew that I'd have to work hard to try to bridge back up to anybody. And I will say the bike was certainly, from an effort standpoint, the highlight of my day. I ended up holding about 285 watts for the entire effort, which was a huge 70.3 power PR for me. And also was lucky enough to connect and ride with Danielle Lewis, who was a waterfall teammate, which was super fun for a while. But even though I was putting out, you know, my high 70.3 power to date, the speed just was not there. And that was frustrating, because knowing that I was putting out, you know, approximately 4.1 watts a kilo, and it was only buying me 22 miles an hour, definitely added to the frustration of the day, because I was working very hard and just wasn't moving as fast as I need to be moving to catch anybody. So other than connecting with Danny for a little bit, I pretty much biked alone for the entire 56 miles, which is hard mentally, and also ends up, you know, you lose speed and you aren't putting time into anybody if you're if you're riding alone and they're riding in a pack. So that certainly did not help me connect to anyone else. And then coming off the bike, was still alone, ran the first 6 miles at roughly what I had been hoping to run. Was able to run a couple people down, which did feel good, and started to help the mental side of things. But at around the turnaround, it's a two lap course. So starting the second lap, my legs definitely started to feel the big effort on the bike, and at that point I was also heating up a little bit. And I did lose a bottle on the bike, ejected a bottle, so I was likely a little bit behind on my fluids, despite still being where I wanted to be from a carb intake standpoint. I did hit my number that Coach Scott from Fuelin recommended I hit, and that felt great, and I think that is truly why I was able to run off the bike with any sort of pace at all, was because I had enough carbs floating around my system. But I do think I was a little bit behind on fluids. So at around mile 6 or 7, my legs started to go a touch. So I had to back off just to make sure that, I didn't end up absolutely imploding and walking the last 4 or 5 miles. So it was far from a PR run split day for me. But, to be expected after holding a very, very high power number, for me at least, on the bike. So, the fact that I was able to run somewhere respectably well after that bike effort did feel good, even though it wasn't my best run of all time. So all in all, it actually was my slowest 70.3 split ever. And seeing that on the finish line of my first pro race was tough. Knowing that even in my first 70.3, which given was only at the end of 2022, but I went for 22, and ended up going up about 6 minutes slower than that in Oceanside this last weekend. I didn't think too much of it, or tried not to give too much thought in the moment, because I knew that I'd still put forth a big effort. But it's a tough mental thing to know that you put such effort into a day, especially a day that holds a pretty good amount of importance, because it was my first pro start, and the numbers just didn't fall quite where I was hoping they were. So moving forward, I have already gone and gotten a new bike fit from Kate Alexander, who's a good friend here in Boulder. She is a PT as well as a certified bike fit with Retool, and she did an amazing job. The difference in my position and just comfort and everything is pretty shocking. So I think that certainly is going to, contribute and help with the bike power translating to speed on course. Aside from that, Chattanooga coming up in about 5 weeks. So this week, training-wise, has been very easy, very chill. Not pushing to get back to intensity too quickly, making sure everything is nice and recovered. So we'll start to build back up next week. And looking at training going forward, after last weekend and just looking back and reflecting, I think that what I really need is to focus on running hard off the bike, holding that power, which now I know I can hold. So even if it's just a couple miles at race pace off the bike, doing that once or twice a week, I think will be very beneficial just in my confidence, and for establishing some faith in my legs, and knowing that I can run that hard after putting up 285 watts for 2 hours. And also, I just need more open water experience. I can count on my hand the number of times that I have swam in the open water. and they're all racing or the day before racing. So I have not spent enough time in the open water to feel as comfortable as pretty much everyone else in the pro field, or to really know how to navigate or adjust for the dynamics of an aggressive field in open water. So, thankfully here in Boulder, once it gets nice out, in about a month, there are going to be a couple open water race series that start to happen. And that will certainly be a weekly occurrence for me, because I know that's a weak spot. So, I think that adding those two things into training will certainly be very beneficial, and will hopefully, help get to a place where I know I can put up some more respectable results, but also results that are more indicative of what I know I'm capable of. So, all eyes on Chattanooga now. Just making sure that the body is ready and everything is kind of ready to rock in 4 or 5 weeks. So, those are the straight up 70.3 Oceanside thoughts. Aside from that, I do want to give a massive shout out to Scott and the entire Fuel In team, because I truly do think that having my nutrition dialed and making sure that I was getting enough fuel in for my taper week, the carb load, and of course on race day, really kind of saved me at the back end of that run there. Also, I have been working with Precision, and that is, what I had in my bottles, and those were the gels that I was taking. Their stuff is amazing. So the combination of Fuel In and Precision really probably saved my butt from certainly overbiking. And then, of course, Ragged Mountain for hooking me up with my race shoes, training shoes, and all my run gear. Thank you all, guys. I appreciate you. Absolutely could not make this season happen without you. So there it is. First effort at a little bit of a race recap YouTube video. We'll see how it goes, and hopefully many more to come.